Chapter 4, Opposition. I don't like opposition. I don't like the sound of that. The following week was quite busy. I wasn't thrown into casework right away. No one wanted a repeat of what happened at my first crime scene. One of the first things that happened was, as promised, that Reuben set me up with one of their existing consultants, a quiet person named Harper. She was a cafe manager most of the time, but as a mid-level infantry, was called in to consult on esper-related matters sometimes, and she was considered one of the more adept psychometrists they worked with despite her level. Though Reuben didn't give her any details or rank, I had the feeling she had somewhat worked out my situation, but she was so sympathetic and helpful. I appreciated the opportunity to talk to her, not just about psychometry. It was my first time speaking with another esper about, well, esper things. But of course she gave me a lot of advice as well. She explained how to find psionic threads, echoes of emotions or events that would allow me to peek into the past. As she described them, they were clumps of psi that varied in intensity. She said I should be able to sense the heavier ones with some consistency with practice. That would help me avoid walking into one without expecting it, as well as find them if they were there. Different espers had different sensitivity levels, so threads might not always be apparent if they were faint. Some research suggested psi wave frequency also impacted the nature of psychometric threads, as well as which espers could sense which threads. I think it's psychometric threads. I keep getting tripped up with that word. It was supposedly why psychometry was so hit or miss. She taught me so many other things. Cages and reverse cages, ways to both look for information while also blocking things out. She noticed I had the reverse cage down almost instinctively. And finally, she taught a protective technique, a sort of mind shield that would also keep me protected from unwanted post-cognitive experiences. Dang, Harper, thanks so much for all the info that we got off screen. I appreciate you. I only had 2 meetings with her, but it was invaluable information. I was so grateful to her for taking the time and to Reuben for helping us meet. I wonder if she's friends with... what was that doctor's name? Ripley in Quill's Root? They're just off to the side, you know, helping us out and stuff, but we never see them. It's okay. They work in the shadows. Amid all that were developments regarding my registration and my living situation. Reuben was officially assigned as my protective agent, not something he'd normally do, but they weren't used to handling ranked espers in their program and wanted someone with experience working with them. I'm sure he's more than happy. Literally. He's probably like, good. And by that point, Reuben and I were already accustomed to one another. They were looking for a place of residence for me in his subdome and district. I would stay with him until they did. I had heard the phrase, "your situation is unique," about 1,000 times, and I was starting to think that my situation was unique. The inquiry regarding everything was underway, and it had cycled out of the news for the most part. The Triad was officially investigating. There was no movement from endgame. At least not outwardly. Their silence was ominous, though I might have been the only one that felt that way. My living situation was temporary, but I was doing my best to settle in as much as possible. Updates would be sparse going forward unless something major happened, like endgame crawling from under their rock and trying to stake a claim over me again. Or so Reuben said now that the bureaucracy was engaged. So we were at least taking endgame silence as an opportunity for me to make some waves with my supposedly amazing psi skills. Which brought me to today's activity, which was my first consulting case. It wasn't visiting a crime scene though, not this time. We were visiting a hospital instead.
The patient is in a coma, so we haven't been able to ask questions. But we believe the attacker was an esper, which is why my division is handling the case.
And why do you think that?
Psionic attacks can disrupt a person's psi waves, even people at the planetary standard. The patient encountered some kind of psionic disruption, so that's the theory for now.
You want me to confirm that?
If you can confirm anything at all, it'll be a step up from where we are now. The truth is that psychometry is almost never triggered by a person, usually a location or objects. The belongings he had with him when he was attacked are here, though. I'm hoping you get something from those. Anything at all.
Huh. Reuben stopped in front of a door to a private room, pressing a button to open it. The inside was dark, and I could hear the faint beep of medical equipment.
Anyway, here we are. They've given us about 20 minutes with him. I can wait outside if I need to.
I don't think that's necessary, but I'll let you know if you're too distracting.
I doubt you struggle with finding me distracting, but I'll try to stay quiet in the corner.
Well, you do have your shirt on this time, at least. I stepped inside the hospital room, studying the man on the bed. He was unconscious, of course, gaunt and unmoving. Poor man. Reuben came inside after me, pointing to a little cabinet in the corner.
They said his personal items are still in there. Apparently, his family has never taken them home. It includes what he was wearing and carrying with him the day of the attack.
I cast a sympathetic look at the bed as I passed by it on my way to the cabinet. With luck, I'd be able to at least help find the person who did this to him. Though that wouldn't wake this guy up. It reminded me of something Reuben had said to me a while ago. People in this line of work didn't correct injustice. By the time they got involved, injustice had already been committed, and they couldn't undo that. Standing in a quiet hospital room, holding someone else's watch in my hand, trying to see psionic echoes around it, I could feel that heaviness weighing down on me. I didn't feel any of these supposed psionic echoes with any of his items, though. The frustrating thing about psychometry, at least from what Harper said, was that no one really understood why one event would leave traces behind while another did not. There were certain potential triggers, such as heightened emotional states, events repeated over years, or traumatic incidents, but none of them consistently left traceable echoes behind. And I wasn't seeing anything with this man's items despite what he'd been through. Of course, there was also the thing with psi-wave frequency, and the fact that I had no idea what I was doing. I took a couple of his things with me to a nearby chair and just sat, closing my eyes as I tried to focus on them and search for any of these threads. There was a flicker of something in my consciousness, and at first I thought I'd caught something useful, but no. It was just the man's sigh, faintly flickering at the edge of my mind. I had been aware on some level of psionic energy before. Mine, Harper's, and the few sessions where she'd worked with me. Reuben's and everyone else's as well, but I had never paused to examine it before. There was a faint sheen of glowing and pulsating light around the man. It wasn't visible to my eyes, really, but I had a clear image of it in my mind as I looked at him. Yellow. Yeah, that's like the normal psi, I think, is yellow. From what I remember. Or was that low-level infantry? I'm forgetting my colors, oh no. I didn't know this man was an esper too. From the way you were talking, I assumed he was a non-esper.
He is a non-esper, though.
Reuben, no, he's not. This man is an esper.
How can you possibly know that?
I can see his psi energy? I'm not getting anything with these items, though. Maybe it would be best to visit the place where he was attacked. Even if it's been a while, there might be some...
What?
What?
Sorry, I'm confused. You can see his psi. What does that mean? You can sense it or physically see it?
A bit of both, I suppose? I can sense it and get a visual picture of it in my head. But it's not just in my head. I can sort of see it with my eyes, but if I shut them, it's still there. So it's not a proper visual. And you're looking like you don't believe me.
It's not that. I've never heard of this before. Is this new? Have you always been able to do it?
Not always. I suppose I started feeling the change in my vision right after the first power surge.
So you can tell the difference between a normal person, someone like me, and Nate Powell, or yourself.
I can. It affects the way Psi looks to me. Winter, too, since he doesn't have any at all. Is Nick Powell... who's Nick Powell? Is that the guy who's unconscious, or what? I'm gonna assume so.
But Nate Powell isn't supposed to be an esper. Are you confident?
I am pretty confident, yeah. Is he unregistered then?
He'd have to be. This could change how we have to view the disruptions in his Phoric system. I'm not sure why they wouldn't have realized his Phoric activity aligned more to an esper's. Unless he's F-class, and...
He trailed off, brows drawn together in thought. Reuben, what is it?
I'm not sure. It could be nothing. I just need to look into some things, I think.
This is tugging at one of your hunches, isn't it? I'm sorry I couldn't find anything else, though. With his items, I mean. I was hoping...
No, don't apologize for that. Whether it's you or any other specialist, we know how psychometry is. Don't feel bad. Besides, you may have just discovered something equally valuable. If you don't think you'll gather any other information here, then we should probably leave for now. We can plan to stop by the scene of the attack later. In the meantime, I want him tested to see if they can verify that he's an esper. Not that I don't trust you, but...
I get it. It's not like you can just take my word for it.
We assumed he was attacked by an esper because Phoric disruptions for non-espers come from the outside. Invasive psi, basically. But that's not true for espers. The disruptions can come from within their own systems. Fade, burnout, and a host of other issues. He still had physical injuries, indicating he was in a confrontation, but... knowing he's an esper could change our case theory by quite a lot, including who attacked him and why.
Reuben spoke to the medical staff for a while after that. He was quiet as we left the hospital. When he started talking again, it wasn't about the case. Rather, he wanted to know more about my ability to see psi the way I did. I hadn't realized it was unusual.
So you're telling me that the color and intensity of this light you see varies based on a person's rank?
That's my interpretation. Granted, I have pretty limited experience since I haven't met many different ranks.
You encountered a variety of them the day Endgame attempted to apprehend you.
Yeah, but back then my abilities weren't what they are now, so I wasn't exactly paying attention. Now, when I look at normal people, if I focus, I see a sort of green haze around them. Oh, that's right, they're green. Thank you, Morgan. It's faint, and it doesn't have much form to it. Most of them have the same shade of emerald green. You, however, have a slightly unique color, both warmer and more vibrant, which I think makes sense given that you're a P class. Infantry, like Harper and Mr. Powell, have a yellow or gold color, so your psi leaning more toward yellow makes sense in a strange way? Okay. Interesting. That's interesting. So it is infantry is yellow.
I'm sure Psi specialists would have a lot to say about your understanding of color theory influencing your visual perception of Psi. What does your own Psi look like then?
It's white-ish, I suppose? Colorless? It's almost transparent, and it's definitely a lot brighter than anything I've seen on anyone else.
So intensity is tied to the strength of someone's Psi. And since becoming more aware of Psi, you've never met anyone of any other rank, so you wouldn't know how you perceive them. I mean, it's fascinating, honestly. I've never heard of this before. But it's not like I've met any other queen rank, so I can't say it's a common skill. I'd assume so.
I can't say either.
It seems like a pretty useful ability, from what I can tell.
Is it really that helpful to know if Mr. Powell is an esper?
Yeah, it is. Like I said, we'll have to reevaluate the direction of our theories right now. It had been listed as a random violent crime since we had no reason to believe otherwise, and he was found in an alley, not in his home or anywhere that assumes he knew the suspect.
But it could still be random even if he's an esper, especially if he wasn't registered, right?
Morgan, do you have experience with esper support groups like Community Sci?
We are not cautious, so let's say we're vaguely aware of them. He did mention Community Sci before to us. I'm aware of them. I wouldn't say I have experience with them, but I know vaguely what they are. There was one in New Albion called Sci-Friends, which is definitely a title that makes you just want to sign up.
I acknowledge the group names can be a little lackluster.
I saw their adverts sometimes. They had group meetings and dating events or something. I never went or got involved. I mean, being unregistered, of course. That would have been weird.
They definitely offer community engagement like that. They offer other types of support too. They help espers find work or even help with finding medical specialists. Most of them have temporary housing as well or offer counseling services. You can find them all over. A lot of the bigger ones are funded by dome governments and have close ties with regulation groups.
All the more reason for people like me to stay away, I guess. I am, if you recall, a hardened criminal that never registered.
You'd be surprised how many never registered people get help from some of these groups too. Unofficially.
Ah, the unofficial thing always seems to crop up, doesn't it?
It does. Unofficially, many smaller groups do in fact work with unregistered espers.
Of course they do.
With the surge in F-class espers, there are more and more people slipping through the cracks. And in some cities, the smaller support groups are just a front. They offer legitimate services to keep the government off their back, because their role is to keep people off the backs of their clients. In other words, behind the scenes, their sole purpose is to help unregistered espers hide. Espers flock to them for protection and help.
They shouldn't have to go to them for protection.
No, they shouldn't. But if things had gone a little different for you, perhaps you would have found yourself seeking shelter with one as well.
That was possibly true, though I'm not sure I'd have trusted one enough to. But it was hard to say what I'd have done once I got that desperate. It's frustrating that people feel they have to hide.
It is. But the groups are flourishing, and new ones are popping up all the time.
Just not getting government funding if they want to maintain their unofficial work, I suppose.
Well, having government ties would scare away the people they want to help.
Yeah. I'm not sure that not having government ties would have helped instill much confidence in me. Back then, I wanted nothing to do with espers. Not community, not support.
Not work.
Yet here I am.
I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you want to be getting your hands into.
I'm not complaining, just observing. And my situation definitely isn't your fault. In fact, you're the one thing that's made all of this bearable. And the blush.
Well, I try to be helpful.
I didn't say you were helpful, though. I said your presence has made this more bearable. You've done everything in your power to make me feel safe, which I appreciate. But you've also just been supportive and kind. And you are genuinely nice to be around. I think it would have been much worse if I had fallen in literally anyone else's lap, even if they tried to be helpful. Dang, girl came on strong there.
Oh, well, you can fall in my lap anytime you... Wait.
The truth comes out!
No, I'm going to stop myself right there before I say something that keeps me awake in deep regret every night for the next month.
Too late. His ears went red as he looked away. And I had a sneaking suspicion it might already be too late for that, yeah.
What I'm going to say is you're welcome, and leave it at that.
These two goobers, they're so alike. She had that same thing with the eggs. She's like, I'm trying to say this and I'm just gonna shut up right now. Amused by that almost blunder, I decided to save him by going back to our previous topic before things became even more awkward. So, esper support groups. What does any of that have to do with Nate Powell?
Right. Well, Nate is associated with a small esper support group here in Cerna. Not one of the major ones. It's called Esp-Anon. When you realize he's an esper, my mind immediately went to a case from a few months ago in Cerna's main dome. Over the course of a few weeks, 3 espers working for Community Sci were attacked outside of work, all separate occasions. One never saw their attacker. They just beat him up and left him by a dumpster. Another person said they were attacked by a tall individual who never spoke. The third ended up in a coma because of psi fatigue. The doctors thought it must have been due to trying to defend himself. He had no memory of the events upon waking. Anyway, all 3 were espers, and all 3 were connected to local Community Sci offices. But the case went cold. No leads. The attacker was never found.
Are you wondering if this case is connected to that one now?
Well, it's a different dome and a different group. But we have a low-level esper with ties to a support group who was beaten up and left in an alley.
It's almost like a serial killer, except no one's died yet? But they have like an MO and they move around to not get caught? I mean, I see the similarities, but why would someone travel all the way here to pick up where they'd left off beating up espers?
I don't know. More than anything, though, I just have a feeling.
A feeling. And I knew his feelings were often more than feelings. So what are you going to do about it?
Not sure yet. Making a mental list of things we should check out. But first we'll visit the site of Powell's attack and see if you can find anything there.
Sounds good. Unfortunately, my big reveal for the day would be that Nate Powell was an esper. Reuben and I joined up with Winter and visited the alley where the attack had taken place. There were psionic threads there, but nothing related to the event. Not that I could see. Though I did at least understand what a psionic thread even was now. And the experience taught me a whole new drawback to psychometry, and that was stumbling on things other than what I was looking for. I couldn't tell what a thread was going to link me to without actually checking it. It was amazing what people would do in public when they thought they'd get away with it. Amazing and a little disturbing, to be honest. Poor Morgan, she needs to like wash her brain after all that. But I found nothing useful no matter how much I looked. I kept insisting they let me continue to try. Until I think Reuben was finally ready to drag me out of the alley if I kept arguing, though. Aren't you getting exhausted? Using your side to check all these threads?
Morgan, I keep telling you we're well aware of how this works. We know it's difficult, and we knew you might not find anything. You can't spend 10 hours searching for what might amount to nothing.
I just don't want coming here to have been a waste of time.
It isn't. You said yourself that actually seeing a place with psychometric echoes has helped you understand the process better. That'll be useful going forward.
Still...
Even if it wasn't productive for the Nate Powell case, there's still value in you having the chance to practice. You're not wasting our time. Winter's right, Morgan. This is just one case. We have dozens you might be able to help with.
I suppose that's true, but... It was frustrating that it wasn't working. I was supposed to be a queen rank. I should be good at this. How did I stumble into some psychometric experience at one crime scene, yet I couldn't catch even a hint of something useful here? There had to be something.
Morgan, stop.
One of his hands slipped over my eyes, covering my view of the alley.
That's enough. You've been trying for a while now and you need to rest.
I hope you realize I can still see even when you do that.
I know. But please, listen to me.
I took a deep breath before I pried his hand off my face. Fine. I will stop for now, and I'll try to be more patient in general.
Good. I want to get you home so you can rest. Winter and I have some digging to do too. I'll be going back to the office for a while. I'll call you from there while you get this one home. Alright. We'll see if we can connect Nate back to the community Sci case from before. And I also want to look more into Nate's group here. Just on the off chance his being unregistered indicates a bigger problem with it. Well, if one of its lead admins is unregistered, there's a good chance there are others.
You think they were unofficially helping rogue espers?
Most likely. And as much as I wish it wasn't the case, there is a higher prevalence of esper crime related to some of these groups and the sub-communities they're involved with. There are a lot of desperate people seeking help with them. And desperate people sometimes get involved in the wrong things when their other options run out. So we find little pockets of problematic behavior with these unregistered groups. No matter what my gut is telling me, we should cover all our bases. Alright, I'll be in touch. Talk soon.
Reuben and I headed back to his place, where he was intending to work from his home office for the remainder of the day.
I hope you're not so quiet because you're still beating yourself up over not finding anything in that alley, Morgan.
I'm not beating myself up. I'm just frustrated. I'm supposed to be this great and mighty queen rank, and I can't even do something that simple. People ruin my life for my supposed amazing skills. So where are these amazing skills now?
Teleporting all the way to Cerna back then was pretty amazing.
Am I only allowed to do amazing things when I'm in an absolute panic? I'd like to be able to do them on command. Would be helpful.
In my experience, it's sometimes harder to do small things consistently and with intent than it is to create an occasional amazing accident.
I let out a loud groan, dragging my hands down my face. I just thought it would be easier.
You didn't strike me as someone who expected things to come easily, more as someone who was used to working hard for them.
I shot him a sour look, which he returned with an amused grin. I'm too tired and cranky and hungry for optimism right now.
Sorry. I'll try to be less encouraging until you've had food.
It's not the encouraging part that makes me want to throw you out of this moving vehicle. It's the part where you clearly find my frustration amusing.
Please don't do that. At least not while it's set to manual.
I guess I would like to avoid another incident where a car I'm in drives into a wall or something.
And for the record, I don't find it amusing. I find your persistence admirable. And your frustration charming. It's very clear you're accustomed to overperforming.
As opposed to underperforming?
I thought you did well today. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but investigations are like this. You sometimes dig and dig, and it feels futile because you can't quite find the missing pieces you know you need.
I guess it's like that in my field, too. When we're looking at trying to piece together an ancient culture with out-of-context fragments, sometimes we go years with little progress. In my defense, I do have a bit of extra pressure. It's not just a case for me, you know?
I know that. And it's natural to be frustrated at this process. You're allowed to be frustrated, Morgan. I don't want you to feel pressure to stay positive all the time either. As much as I admire your ability to keep moving forward, I don't want you to feel alone in all this. Because you aren't. I sometimes worry you don't know that. Or maybe you don't consider me... Well, I am just your protective agent.
Hardly. It feels weird to say it, but also I don't see how I can think of you anything but a friend at this point. At least I hope I can.
Of course. I'd like to think I would help anyone in your position in the same way. But in the end, some people make it easy to want to help them. And I won't deny there's a little personal attachment at this point,
No. They want to smooch. I was glad to hear that. I was glad it wasn't just a sense of obligation or something. So to be clear, I don't feel alone. Sometimes the thoughts about it all just catch up to me and I spiral into useless circular thinking. Please don't spend too much time worrying about me. What I'm really tired of is how it's all I think about anymore. All we talk about. I miss being able to think about literally anything else, even exams. I want to go back to when my life was all about exams and studying for them. Isn't that terrible? You know, things have taken an annoying turn when you'd rather think about exams than the current situation.
That does make things seem pretty dire. I think I'm still mentally recovering from that period in my life. I even still dream about being late for class.
Or the one where it's the end of the semester and you realize you've not attended class at all?
And then, to make matters worse, you realize you're underdressed.
God, I hate those dreams.
I hope life gets back to exams and worrying about restocking your kitchen at some point, Morgan. I really do.
If not, I suppose I just have to get better at psychometry somehow.
I'm certain you will become an expert at it in short order. That seems very like you.
I hope so. I'd been planning to flop on the sofa dramatically as soon as we were home, and suffocate myself into oblivion while Reuben went to his study to work, but when we stepped through the front door, we were confronted with an unexpected and terrifying scene. A murder? Reuben and I both stopped short. Me with my jacket half off, and Reuben with his finger resting on the little box hanging in the doorpost. I imagined we both looked silly with our eyes wide, frozen mid-activity like we'd just been caught doing something terrible. I should have freaking known. You're probably sitting on the couch, lounging with a cup of tea and one of Reuben's books. You jerk. I should have known this was gonna happen. Oh, I'm slipping. I'm losing my touch.
Oh, hello there. I was starting to worry.
Who was that? Oh, hi, Ari. I'd barely finished the thought when I noticed the man next to him, and my heart leapt straight to my throat. You. The word came out as a hoarse croak. Reuben stepped in front of me, one arm out protectively. That's sweet. I don't think that's gonna help with Ari around, but that's sweet.
What the hell are you people doing in my house?
I tried to quell the sudden anxiety the mere sight of endgame sent straight to my gut. They'd found me. Or they'd known where I was the whole time. Probably the latter. What did they want? Well, Magnus rarely leaves the tower. He's probably here with some kind of proposition. Because if they intended to apprehend me again, I might just fight them tooth and nail the entire way this time. Get angry. Let Reuben handle this. Step in front of Reuben and talk to them. Okay, we're not cautious. As much as we love our boy stepping in to protect us. But yeah, if it's just the two of you... Magnus might even be here unofficially. I don't think the emotional response is going to help in the situation. And we're not cautious, so let's do confident. I stepped around Reuben, easing his arm away. I knew he was giving me a surprised, worried look, but I needed to do this myself. Keeping my voice as steady as possible, I leveled what I hoped was a neutral stare at the blonde. I had no idea who he was, but it didn't really matter. I knew who he was with, and based on his clothes, I didn't think he was a normal agent. Kinda sad I didn't run into Magnus during the intro. Although, I couldn't, could I? No, because I went and talked to Reuben, so never mind that then. I'd also like to know what you're doing here, though I assume it's to do with me.
How clever you are, Miss Leone. It is indeed.
And I instantly disliked him. Fair. Well, I'm probably not clever enough to break into someone's house when they're not home, but I like to think I'm pretty intelligent. What exactly can I do for you? Ari's faces are just hilarious. He's like, eh.
Oh my. It appears we've annoyed you, haven't we?
You would annoy me less if you told me who you are and what you want. No more kidnappings, I hope, because if Ari gets within arm's reach of me this time...
No. That was a simple attempt to apprehend...
I wouldn't call it simple, all things considered.
It wasn't following usual procedures, I note. But surely you didn't come to rehash something that's been all over the news for days anyway, did you, Mr. Ulrich?
Ulrich? Wait. Magnus Ulrich? He was the head of Endgame's Esper forces? Come to think of it, he did look a bit familiar. Ugh, what was he doing here?
No, of course not. It's water under the bridge already. I'm just here to talk, that's all.
Do you always break into homes when you want to talk to someone?
Only if it is more convenient. Alas, I was afraid we'd catch too much attention waiting in the hall. I do hope you understand. We meant no harm.
Yeah. I'd believe that more if you weren't blocking my ability to contact my partner.
Oh. Ow. He was what?
No, Detective Kellner, there's no need to tell on us or call for backup. And I believe I already said it's in our mutual interest if no one realizes I'm here.
Uh-huh.
How sad that you don't believe me. Very well. Allow me to introduce myself properly this time, Miss Leone. I'm Magnus Ulrich, the head of Endgame. And I will say it one more time. I am merely here to have a friendly chat. Why don't you have a seat?